to the interview portion of Think Different, Feel Different.com. I'm your host, Tina O'Brien, and today I have the privilege of interviewing the electrifying guru fitness expert, Miss Tonya Whittle of TWFitness. Thank you, Tonya, for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me, Tina. I'm so excited to do this interview with you.
I am too. Okay, Miss Tonya. We'll start right after that. We'll get right into it. So what makes Tonya Whittle and TW Fitness different than any other fitness business?
Well, I do.
Good answer.
um, the reality of it is I make the company very different than a lot of fitness-based companies. And the reason being why it's so different is that I do a lot of mindset coaching. And for a very long time, I was in the fitness industry and I knew that there was something missing. And I couldn't quite put my finger on it because I saw a lot of people get really good results, come in and they did fantastic. They did amazing. But then, maybe 6 months, a year, even 2 years later, they would say, well, I'm going to try it on my own, or I'm not feeling it anymore, or, something like that. And I would have that conversation with them that, guys, it's not about the money. Like, I have a wait list of clients. So what I want to know from you is, can you promise me that you're going somewhere else or that you are going to take care of yourself when this time comes? And, I might run into them somewhere in town 6 months or a year later and realize that they've put all their weight back on. And so I knew it's not about the exercise. It's not just about the nutrition. It's not that people don't like to, eat healthy or exercise, because the reality is when we're truly happy, that stuff comes naturally. When we're really happy, we don't want to eat crappy food or junk food. And, we enjoy getting out and getting those hikes in, getting our runs in, getting to the gym. And so I really knew that there was something missing. And my search then began for what it is. And for myself included, through the mindset coaching side of things, I was really able to see that this was a big piece that's missing from the fitness industry. So I'm kind of consider myself in a crossover industry between coaching and fitness and nutrition. So I kind of do the whole thing. But to kind of elaborate a little bit on I guess what makes me different is that I think that people can really see that I'm very genuine and compassionate about helping them change their lives, is that I understand that it's really not about not liking salad or not liking exercise, that it comes down to a self-love and self-worth issue. And I get to have with a lot of people, and I'm very fortunate to be able to have those real conversations, that it's not about people being lazy. It's not about people just not wanting something. It's just about them being unable to connect all the dots and realize that there's something underlying at an emotional level about getting them to the next step, about it becoming a lifelong permanent change. And so that's where I really differ in the fitness industry, is that I tackle those issues in addition to the exercise and lifestyle modification. There are lots of things that we do in terms of groups. I actually do, group coaching, and we haul out those issues in terms of groups, but it can be done on a very individualized level as well. So we'll do some behind the scenes work where people journal their own stuff, and then they can book coaching calls with me where we can discuss their more personal or private issues. But a lot of my work is done with clients on that private level. But first, it's very scary. Oh my God, I'm going to go in and I'm going to talk to people about my problems. Like, let them really see what's going on, or what I'm afraid of, or my self-limiting beliefs and all of that stuff. But, I think for all of us who are in this mindset world, we all remember what it was like after that first time when you rip that Band-Aid off, and then you're like, God, that doesn't sound half so bad once I said it out loud as what we make it in our heads. So once people have that trust, when they know that this is coming from a place of love and caring and compassion, and not from a place of judgment or, needing people to change, makes a huge difference in how they feel. And so that's what TW Fitness is. We're a very supportive community for each other. It's like the saying goes, we don't need to say that it's confidential, because people have a level of respect for what somebody else is going through, and people can share or not. But on a private coaching level with me, I'm able to get down to the deeper issues, because I ask the questions that other fitness places just don't ask. Like, when I do a consultation with people, they're like, I was not expecting you to ask me these types of questions. And I said, but these are the types of questions that are going to help us understand whether or not you're ready to even start a fitness program, or, what the real issue, where is the chokehold? Because it's not about not liking squats. And it's not about not liking asparagus. It's always about the chokehold. There is a chokehold. Everyone has one. I have one. You have one. Everyone has one. And we need to uncover what that chokehold is in order to get people to a place where fitness and wellness and taking care of their body is coming from a place because they love themselves enough to do it, as opposed to changing because the media says this is what we should look like, or the world says this is what we should look like. So a lot of the times, even a lot of fitness places do, and I own up to that too. When I first got started in the fitness industry, it was good enough. Mm-hmm. But now it's kind of changed because you are and always have been good enough, and you love yourself enough to take care of the body that you were given.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Perfect. Yeah, that definitely answers my question. That definitely separates you from the other fitness businesses. So now, Miss Tonya, actually, I say Miss. I call everybody Miss. I think I was a male gentleman from the South. I call everybody Miss. So
if you ever call you Tim and you're single, call me.
I will. So another question I had for you, do you consider yourself a type A personality, and how has that benefited you, like not only even in your business but in your own personal transformation?
Oh, type A overachiever all the way. A blessing and a curse all mixed together in one. Definitely one of the things that is very funny. But I remember the day that one of my best friends said to me, we were having a conversation about personalities, and she said, we were chatting, and I was like, well, I understand I'm a little bit of a type A, and she's like, you're not a little bit of a type A, you're like an A plus plus, and she's like, and that's not always a good thing, right? You know that, and I was like, what do you mean? Everybody wants to be an A plus. So that's something a total type A would say, right?
Yeah.
So the thing that it's really benefit. So I remember the day I was shocked. Who doesn't want to be an A plus? But I remember realizing that maybe my methods weren't all that they needed to be. Like, I needed to learn how to calm some of the drive that I had. And that's been, I've been very successful at that over the last 1 to 2 years. But it benefits me in a lot of ways because of the fact that, I don't like to fail. I don't, fear of failure was something that I really uncovered as a massive limiting belief that I had. And it keeps you sometimes working a little too much and a little too hard, with not knowing how to take that downtime or how to stop and rest and relax and, do those things. But on the other side, it's really driven me to be successful, because when I left the corporate world, I was out on my own. I didn't have any other source of income. It was sink or swim. And when you're forced to, I said, like, I was happy, but like the bank doesn't, you can't pay the mortgage in happiness, sadly. And so, when I had to go out, it was a sink or swim attitude. And it was, I approach most things that I do in life. I set a goal and I look at the steps that it's going to take me to get there. And then I just apply myself day in and day out. I wake up with that driving passion inside of me to be good at whatever it is that I'm doing. And so when it came to my transformation, when I got fit and got healthy and lost my weight and let go of a lot of the things that were holding me back, it really came from I accepted that this is going to be a part of my life forever. So I switched my thinking around. I did 4 Now diets and I got 4 Now results. And I did 4 Now fitness and I got 4 Now results. And I really wanted long term. I was like, I don't want to battle with this for another 20 or 30 or 40 years until I reach maybe 60 and then finally give up. I really wanted to tackle it. And I got into, changing how I viewed myself. And so I did a lot of mindset coaching in those early days of really changing my view of myself and of fitness. And that type A personality really allowed me to dig in and make the commitment and see it through to the end, which, for me, there is no end in terms of transformation or always working on your body and always working on, making things better. Every year I, build a little bit more muscle. Every year I get a little bit faster, a little bit fitter. And, it's an amazing thing to see what your own body is actually capable of being pushed through. And then of course, it's allowed me to really dig in and do the things that are necessary. Like when you're self-employed, most of us who've been self-employed for, I'll be fully 100% self-employed 5 years this January. Yes, it's an exciting thing because when you go out in business, you certainly never know how things are going to go for you. And, my personality was able to just dig in and say, I'm not failing. It's not an option. And come hell or high water, one way or another, I will be successful. And that attitude allowed me Friday nights sometimes when I had to sit in my office and do accounting, when all my friends or my family were out at functions and events, I might have been home planning new programs or, designing things for my clients, because in those early days, especially, I had to be on my game to really carve out a place for me in the fitness industry, to let people know I'm here. See this face? It ain't going anywhere. And, that type A overachieving personality really allowed me to dig in and just do what was necessary. A lot of days when, you maybe wanted to be doing something else, but you knew the importance of what you set out to do. So my type A overachieving personality is definitely still with me. It's a little bit more controlled through my mindset coaching and business coaching and things like that. So I have more focused type A personality, as opposed to in the past, it was a lot of the times a little bit chaotic. But so it's still with me. And I think a lot of people who are self-employed have a similar personality that allows them to be successful.
Excellent. Sounds like super. Sounds like you totally got a balance.
Some days.
Tonya, you in your blog and on your website, you speak so honestly. You're so real. You share your struggles with self-image, with eating disorders, and your body image in the past. And I guess it's still a struggle today. But like you said, similar to your type A personality, now it's more balanced and controlled. How has those issues, like what? It's not how, but what has those issues taught you about you and taught you about life?
Oh my, you say I speak openly and honestly, but I would say that my honesty has been a little bit newer, through my own mindset coaching, a lot of the work that I've done on myself over the years. I really realized that I really needed to start speaking my truth, and I needed to be authentic with people. Is that a lot of times people, see my images, they see the things that are posted out there for the world to see, the perfect photos that were taken in a studio with your hair and makeup all done, and everything looks great. And, back in a couple of years ago when I first shared my before and after photo, the reason that I decided to do it was because people would say to me, you don't understand. And I would look at them and say, no, you don't, you haven't walked in my shoes. And so I actually decided to share my before and after photo because I wanted people to realize that I really do, no, I was never morbidly obese. But the only reason I was never morbidly obese is because I chose restriction as a vehicle for my eating disorder, whereas people who are morbidly obese have chosen to eat. We're still filling the same void.
Yes.
It's just different vehicles to get there. So the reason that I never became morbidly obese was simply because I learned how to really restrict myself. And, I developed an eating disorder in my teens, which, through some of my blogging that people have read and that you've read, I overcame it through the gym. I always tell people the gym saved my life because it was a place where I could sweat it out, like all my self-hate, all the things that the body image issues, and where I never felt good enough. And you could just leave it in a puddle of sweat on the floor and walk out, and you felt like, She-Ra walking out of the gym when you were finished. And so it was for me, that was that place where I accomplished that. And then, I did decide more recently to be more open about my more recent setback, because it's a challenge to tell people, I'm a personal trainer. I'm in the fitness industry. I coach other people on healthy living. But while I was doing that, I was battling an eating disorder at the same time. And that I mean, I remember the anxiety. This was just weeks ago that I posted those. And I remember having serious anxiety as I was trying to press the post button. And I was like, what are people going to think? How will I be judged? What will, But I posted it because I knew in my heart that it was time for me to tell people the truth. The simple truth is that I'm not perfect. I have my own bag of things, and I don't want people looking at me thinking that this is what they need to strive for, because in reality, I'm still figuring it all out. And as I go and as I coach people, I've been fortunate that I am motivating to other people, and that I listen and I hear them and I see them, who they really are behind all the smoke and mirrors, and I can connect with them on a different level. So I realize that this will make other people connect more with me, because they'll realize that. So what I really wanted to take away from the image that was out there of me is not perfection, but let's strive for progress.
Yeah, there's so much power in being vulnerability and sharing that. There's so much power in it.
There really is. And you know what? When I posted, the first two went out and I really didn't get a lot of feedback. And I was kind of like, oh God, maybe this was a complete fail. I'm like,
Definitely not.
I could see the Twitter hashtag coming up now, epic fail. But, I think people were really waiting for that third blog post. And that day when I posted the blog post, I had to clear out my voicemail 3 times. My Facebook messages were I had to turn everything off. It was overwhelming. The massive amount of messages that were coming in. I mean, women on leaving their voicemail crying, like saying, I felt like you were writing it to me. And I realized in that moment that that's why I was meant to write those, that it's that connection that I was able to get with, these people weren't calling me to become a client. They were calling to thank me. I'm so glad that you talked about this, because I look at women like you and I think you've got it all together. And I really felt like you were speaking to me when you wrote those blog posts. And so I get a little bit teary on that, because it's just empowering to know how many lives that you were able to maybe impact, alter, and shift by just giving them a little advice, by saying, you need to go and deal with this, whether it's, through transformational training or, some mindset coaching or landmark education, or, I mean, there's a host. Newfoundland right now is very blessed with the amount of coaches that we have that are here to help people. And, that's what I really directed them into the right areas for them, of actually going out to get some help with this. And I said, you've got to rip the Band-Aid off and tell people, that you're battling this, that you're bulimic, that you're anorexic. And it's so amazing, because one woman said to me, I can't tell people that I'm anorexic because I'm fat. Right? And I was like, that's also something that I even battled with, of, well, how are you anorexic if you're not? But it's a pattern of disordered eating. And that's even disordered thinking around there. Well, I don't really have an eating disorder because I'm still overweight.
Yes.
So being able to really delve into the issues of that. But, there are very few women. And I think, we underestimate how many men are also impacted. The Eating Disorder Society in Newfoundland deals with mostly men as their client base. And we really underestimate how many men are battling with body image issues everywhere we turn. We're bogged down with these images of perfection. I mean, the models themselves don't even look like it. I shared my photoshopped images as well, and said, who doesn't? I was striving to look like the after image, the airbrushed, the Photoshop, the perfect lighting, the perfect hair, the perfect makeup. I mean, we could all look like that every day if we had someone to walk around and airbrush us in real life, but we don't. And so what I want is for us to start learning to accept women and men in our real. There's no perfect body type, that we're given what we're given. And when you treat it authentically and you live within your body type, it will unfold. It'll come out on its own when you do the right things. And so, I think that it just feels right for me to talk about what I've been through, because I think that my real purpose in this life is to motivate and inspire other people by seeing what I've overcome. And to openly talk about it, to let people know it's okay to talk about these things, because a lot of this stuff is still very taboo. People don't want people to know that we deal with these issues. We walk around with this cascade of everything's perfect and my life is put together, and that's just not real. And so it just feels right for me to write those real blog posts.
Yeah. Well, for me, I personally think you're the real deal. But what after reading those blog posts, it really made you even the realer deal. Like I was like, she's the real deal. She's coming forth with all her so-called like lessers are coming out, and everybody's like, "Oh my God, yeah, that's me, that's me." It was so relatable. It was
Yeah.
it was beautifully done, beautifully done.
Thank you.
So, Miss Tanya, who is presently and who has been some of your biggest mentors?
Oh boy. I mean, as they say, it takes a village.
Yes, I hear you.
I mean, I'm telling you, you know what I'm talking about. When you're
Yeah.
in this world and we start to really uncover a lot of our own
Yep.
issues and our own mindset stuff, our self limiting beliefs, and the things that have held
Yeah.
us back, and the chokeholds. And there's so many different avenues that you can take in terms of wellness and coaching.
Yeah.
And every piece that I've done has been very different, but also contributed to who I am today by
Mm-hmm.
allowing me to realize, who I really am and then be able to step out. But probably some of my biggest mentors, Tina Olivero. I mean,
Right.
she's the first person. She was a client of mine, and she teaches transformational training.
Yeah.
And she was the first person who really snapped
Yeah.
into me and said, like, wake up.
Exactly.
It's not working.
Yeah.
I was a disaster. I mean, I was a walking disaster.
Mm-hmm.
And she was the first person who I would say had the courage
Yeah.
to really let me to really let me see what was happening. So, I started doing transformational training. And Tina is still a very close friend of mine, and I still am very involved in transformational training. It's an amazing program that, for anybody getting started in mindset coaching and things like that, it's definitely the place to be. And I owe her my life.
Yeah.
In a massive amount of gratitude, because I would not be where I am today if it
Yes.
wasn't for that moment, that day when she said, you need to come
Mm-hmm.
because you need something else. This isn't working. So since then, I mean, I've worked with a variety of people that I've started to follow. Tony Robbins
Oh
is,
yes. Yes.
while we're not friends, or we're not
I
really
know.
connected. I mean, I would steal him if I had the opportunity. He's a little
I
big
would too.
to walk away with, but I would try. I mean, a massive force, very similar in personality to me. I'm very attracted to that level of energy, to how he talks about learning in a peak state and all of that. So I've done Unleash the Power with him. I've also done Business Mastery with him, which, two phenomenal programs. Unleash the Power you've done that as well.
Yes, we're firewalkers. High
Yes.
five.
So, an unbelievable course. So if anybody's looking for, to really get in there and do the transformation side of things, it's a phenomenal thing. But I've read almost all of these books, listened to all of these audio CDs. I mean, they're in my car everywhere I drive. I just have
Yeah.
something on. Brendan Burchard, who I became introduced through the Tony Robbins organization. I follow his stuff. Very, very positive. How much more simple do you want than
Yeah.
live, love, matter? And his speech on when he had his car accident and came out of life matter. Like, he was 18 years old. I mean, that's an empowering thought at 18 to walk out of that and say, did my life matter? And I thought I was very connected to that, because I always knew on some level that I was meant for something more, that I was meant to do something more in this world. And I often thought, it's not about fame. It's not about being known. It's not about rich. It's not about that. It's just about knowing that you've contributed positively to the world around us, the environment around us, and the people around us, that you've contributed to them positively instead of negatively, or indifferently to the world. So his stuff really, really speaks to me as well on a calmer level. Krista Steves is an energy coach that I'm very well connected with. Tina O'Brien from Think Different, Feel Different. I mean, there are just so many people that, I almost feel like, am I really listing people? Because there's so many people that I don't want to accidentally leave out,
Yeah.
but very connected in the mindset world. And, here in Newfoundland, we have some of the, greatest energy healers. Jennifer Trask is my marketing coach, Jennifer is a marketing coach, but I mean, the mindset work that goes behind all of that is just
So much more than that.
it really is so much more than just the marketing side of things. So I've had a massive amount of coaching and help from my village people,
Yeah.
to really keep me on the right track. And I've built that network around me so that if I have a bad day or I need some extra help, then I know who to go to. I have a host and a list of people that I can have very real and open and raw
Yeah.
communication with it. I mean, you lay it out on the table, and
Exactly.
we're solution oriented people, as opposed to, yes, you can vent, but we need to vent in a solution oriented manner, as opposed to just venting and complaining and not changing things. So
Exactly.
I have been very fortunate. It started with Tina, but as I continue to grow and learn, I know that there'll be more mentors that come my way. But with all the people like yourself, Tina, the Tony Robbins organization, Trask, Krista Steves,
Yeah.
all of, Laura Nurse, all of these people that were so well connected in the universe together. I know that there'll be more that'll continue to show up, but these are some of the people that have been there with me every step of the way from the earliest days. So those are some of my best and biggest mentors.
Okay, perfect. Just quickly go back to Tony Robbins. You said that we'd steal him. I think Tony could put two of us in his pocket and he wouldn't even know we're there. He's so large and we're so tiny here.
Let's try that the next
I
time
know.
we go to.
I'll sit next to his lint any day.
I know, it's amazing. That man has some serious
Oh,
energy.
15 hours a day. Like, and he'd just get up and then he'd start clapping. And it was just like, whoa.
The energy that comes from that. And that's what I always say to people, like, you have no idea. When I was away, I took a few video clips and I would send them back to my husband. And he's like, I don't think you're at a business conference. It looks like you're at a rave.
I know.
The amount of energy and the mind over matter to really take you through, fire walking. I mean, this is something that when I got there, I was like, there's no way it ain't happening. I'm not walking over 2,200 degree Fahrenheit hot cold. It's not happening. Not going to happen. And, I mean, I sailed over it, like, didn't feel a thing. And I mean, that the knowledge that comes from that your mind is that powerful.
It's amazing.
What he does is truly, amazing and life-changing for people.
Life-changing, exactly.
So I'll always have a massive amount of gratitude for him and what he does, because it takes a lot of courage to be who you are. To be authentically who you are, especially a man.
He is too. He's so real. He's so real, right?
And for men too, I think, it goes without saying that the culture and the world that we live in, we've created men to always have to be strong and, never cry. And, we've really done a disservice in the world to the men that are in all of our lives. And so I think on step up to that level. And, I mean, I've been in workshops where he's cried. And I mean, it's heartwarming to see that a man can be that in touch with who he really is, and then get up there and go out and inspire, millions and millions of people to live better lives, to live more authentically, to give back to the world more than we take away from it. It's going to create a much better world for all of us to live in, and for our future generations to live in.
Definitely. I just have two more quick questions, but the first one is, what is the number one must factor that helps you achieve happiness and to stay as motivated as you are? Like, what's your number one thing that you have to do every single day to keep you on that line, on that track?
Just one. Okay. Well,
your biggest one.
Exercise.
Okay.
But that comes from mindset. So mindset work is extremely important to me on a daily basis. I review my vision board every day. I look at, my must-dos, and, I have this mantra. I actually get a cold shower every morning. As soon as I wake up, I run right to the shower. I turn it on, and I have this mantra that I have to repeat, so it keeps me in there for about 60 seconds. And I mean, you come out of there, there's no amount of coffee in the world that can wake you up like a cold shower in the morning. I may change my tune in the middle of a Newfoundland winter, but go to the wood stove when it's all over. But
perfect.
Exercise is definitely something that I do on a daily basis, and it's not necessarily, a high intensity, heavy weightlifting session in the gym. I may hike with my dogs. I might go for a run, a session in the gym, a yoga workout. For me in my life and my, very creative, chaotic brain sometimes, that I need to clear out some of that jittery energy so that I can focus, and then it allows me to really focus in on what are my tasks today, what is my outcome of today and what is my intention for today. And so the exercise for me is definitely the top of my list of something that is a must every day.
And everything else.
And you know, as you know, in the Tony Robbins organization, one of the things that they talk very much about is when it's a must, it gets done.
Oh, yeah.
Like for
yes.
for mothers, I say to people all the
Yes.
time, for mothers, you have children who have to get up and go to school.
Mm-hmm.
They have to do that. That is a must for you to do. You must get up and get your children ready and off to school. When exercise and eating well get into that same realm and that same category for you, when it becomes a must, not a should,
yes,
that's when it just becomes a part of your everyday life. It has to become a must. And so exercise and eating well for me are on my must list every day.
Okay, perfect. Yeah. Sounds good. Sounds good. Now, the last question, and this is a super duper question. I can't wait to hear your answer on this. If you had the opportunity to put one sentence on a billboard for millions to see, what would that one sentence be?
I don't do anything in one sentence. Probably given the direction that my business is really has moved into, and with the self-love aspect of it, I would say that if I had to put one thing, one sentence on a billboard, it would be, "You're worth it." A lot of people in this world, in this day and age, we don't realize that where we are in this world is that we're dealing with a self-worth and self-love issue. That's really the crux of where our weight and wellness issues are coming from. And we have a feeling, this underlying feeling all the time, a limiting belief that we're not worth it, that we're not lovable. You know, things happen, whatever it is. It doesn't have to be anything traumatizing that happened in your past. It's just the life and the world we live in that's compounding, and our ego really gets in the way and hangs on to that. And it's an underlying conversation that's running in the back of our mind. Yes. And that's what I would like to be able, if I could give one thing to the entire world, it would be to know that on an individual level, every single one of us is enough, and that we're worth it, and that you need to work on yourself because you love yourself, and that you know your self-worth, and not because you don't like yourself or because from a self-hate perspective. Because loving yourself is going to take you much further in life, in your fitness or wellness goals, or any goals, business goals, career goals, parenting, everything you do in life. When you do that from a place of knowing your own self-worth, everything is going to come a lot easier from that.
Yeah. And you only got one self, and
that's
telling yourself that you're worthy every single day is majorly valuable. And the work you're doing, Tonya, is very, very valuable. And I am so grateful that you gave me this opportunity, that I'm able to share a piece of you with others. So thank you very, very much. It's been a pleasure.
I was so excited when you asked me.
Perfect.